Welcome, everybody, to On the Deck, where we are on the deck here at the KPFA radio station in Berkeley, California.
It's a Tuesday. We always go on Tuesday around 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
And welcome today because we're going to talk about anxiety.
I'm mikO Tolliver. I'm hosting here. You can find me around on the interwebs at mikO Tolliver with two L's again. And I'm here with
Antonio Ortiz,
our interim general manager.
3 O's. You can find me on the Instagrams and the internets here with mikO Tolliver, 2 L's.
Mr. A to Z.
Mr. A to Z, yes.
You really are Mr. A to Z because you know all the information.
A to Z. Well, I try, but not all. But I try.
What's up? How are you?
I'm doing good. Good. I went to New Orleans for a bit of time, just 3 days last week, and I've never been. So it was really exciting to be in that place. There was a lot of partying, something that I'm not really a big fan of. Like I wouldn't go out of my way for it, but it was fun. A lot of live music, a lot of voodoo shops, and I got a voodoo tour of New Orleans, which was really educational.
Yeah.
Like they point out some of the trees that have some sort of spiritual influence or that there's a god in that tree and then paying homage to it. What does it all mean? You know, the stepping away from the Hollywood, what do you call it? Like not misinformation, but it's like the stereotype of what it is. Like it's evil, but with the education of it was an original religion that was kind of incorporated into Christianity. Or not Christianity, into Catholicism, because that was the way they had to do it, because the people were enslaved and they couldn't, pray to their gods.
That seems like a story as old as time.
Yes.
Like that's all. It's like a marketing trick for Christianity. I feel like they did it in Brazil when they were like, we're not allowed to do capoeira. Let's pretend like it's a dance, and then it incorporated in a thing. I guess you could also say that with paganism, where they were just like, we're changing the religion, but everybody's on this pagan trip. I know what. Let's just take all of their holidays and say that they're Christian holidays. And then now you're telling me that they do the same thing in New Orleans, where they're just like,
yeah. It was really interesting because it makes sense. Like, they were talking about the slave trade and also just how, the slave owners had to, in order for them to do it, they would still have to convert all of them into Catholicism. And so it became this way of them showing like, oh, I'm praying to the Virgin Mary, but really I'm praying to another God. Right. I'm not going to name it because I'm not going to do any justice and give the right information, but it was pretty amazing to watch and just to get that little glimpse here and there. And also just it feels like it's the Caribbean. It felt to me like a lot like San Juan. And it was great. I mean, it was very brief. I'll just say that. So
it's okay. I was, when I was in New Orleans, it was very brief as well. But while I was there, I did a tour of that famous graveyard that they have, where I think Marie, I forget her last name, like Condon or something like that, but she was like this like famous like witchcraft lady. If you watch American Horror Story, do you watch that?
I've seen it, yeah.
Do you remember the season where they were in like New Orleans and Angela Bassett played her character? Okay, so I went there.
Yeah.
And it was trippy because like I guess people come there and they leave like little offerings and stuff for it, and the tour guide was being like, yeah, sometimes people leave offerings at the wrong grave though, because they think she's here and she's actually over there. And she was just like, you'll be there and you'll see someone crying like, oh my god, help me, and you like, do you interrupt them and say, actually the grave is the wrong one? Yeah. So there was that, and then I saw like this big huge pyramid grave, which I think was like I can't, it's a famous actor. I don't want to say because just then I don't want people to come for me and be all like, that's not who it is. But there was a famous actor who is alive now still. And they like already prepaid on their like gravestone. It was like this huge pyramid. And I was like, that's a little Illuminati. But they have this rule now too at the grave site where it's like, you actually have to have someone buried there. And like it's not really open to the public anymore. Like you have to do the tours.
I should have talked to you before I went, because we went there to the grave and we were trying to do it before our flight. And then they said, oh, we only give tours. It has to be a guided tour and we're full today. I'm like, oh man, I should have known that ahead of time. But we ended up walking around and she kind of had a feeling of where it would be. She wanted to pay homage to Marie Laveau. So we went to that area.
Is that her name, Marie Laveau? Okay, yeah. Okay.
So anywho, there was a lot of, I also went to this retreat center to do a sound bath, and it gave me a lot of clarity. It's like, wow, this is really calming, peaceful.
Okay.
Getting in touch with yourself. right? I was surprised to have gotten that from New Orleans.
Really?
Yeah. So it relieved my anxiety. So I'm going to go back to what I said earlier when we said we're going to talk about
Oh
anxiety.
yeah, we're talking about anxiety today. I think it's totally fair. When we were talking about because people were kind of feeling anxious
Mm.
before we kind of started the show today. Here being at a radio station where there's constant news, I
Hmm.
think that like puts people on edge too. Speaking of news, isn't it this the last week for Eileen? Right?
Yes, that's right.
It's Eileen Alfandari's last week. She retires at the end of the week.
Hmm.
Um, and you know what? I'm going to tell you that. Actually, this is so our interim general manager that
Mm.
you see people. I'm doing this because there's someone off screen who was like, I need you to sign
I
something.
need you to sign
Our
checks.
precious
Oh.
Angie, who she doesn't want to be on screen, but she's so great. So yeah, go ahead and sign that. But yeah, that's the anxiety. He's constantly working, but we're constantly working here at the station. We do news. We have all our public affairs shows, so it can be really on edge because we have to reach that deadline. So that I think production, making sure we have the right numbers, and then the fundraising, there is a lot of anxiety. So we were trying to think of like ways that people manage anxiety. Me myself personally, what do I like to do? I like a good breathing exercise. I play guitar. I have played guitar for a very long time, most of my life. So that can feel good. And sometimes I just like to play some music to be be in that. I snowboard. I know some of you guys know that. I do love to snowboard. It's something that it's a hobby that I've picked up in the last like 5 years or so, which I have to say it has a good level of meditation to it that
Hmm.
I legit would say that I feel different developmentally just because I've been doing it. Like I really do. I really feel like I've really processed a lot of things. I've really like dealt with a lot of things and really just kind of worked it out. Worked it
Hmm.
out on that mountain, worked it out. So, yeah, what are ways that you deal with anxiety?
Well, I used to deal with it by going to dance class. Meditation, I dealt with. I did a bit of time, but it was something hard for me to really get into. So movement was kind of my form of meditating, running. But I haven't really been doing that as much because I've been doing. We've been talking about this before, like just how to do boundaries with work, and I just been working a lot, and so it's the challenges, but also it's practice every day. Like how do you say I'm going to stop at this time or I'm going to start at this time and work on self care. But lately, I've just been trying to get home and sleep, and
Okay.
that's it. But
I think that's
that could
really
be
good.
challenging sometimes when
Yeah.
you're anxious and thinking about what's the worst thing that could happen. Right?
Yeah, I watched a TV show once and there was a kid on the show who couldn't sleep and they were asking the adult, "What do I do?" And the adult was like, "Just stay up and think about all your problems like most adults." And I was like, "Oh my goodness, it's so true." But yeah, there's all
Yeah.
kinds of way to manage anxiety, like to listen to some great music,
Yeah.
right? And I
That.
know that one really great music show here at the
Mm-hmm.
station that we can listen to that I know a lot of people are fans of,
Mm-hmm.
it comes on Saturdays at 9 a.m. would be
Mm-hmm.
Music of the World.
Yep. And they do live music once a month.
They do. They do.
Yeah.
And just remember, anybody out there, if there's anything that we're talking
Mm-hmm.
about that you want to learn more about, you can always tune in to KPFA 94.1 FM.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also always log on to kpfa.org and find out more. And one of the things you can find out is this very spiffy music show
Mm-hmm.
Saturdays at 9 a.m. And I wish we had somebody here to talk to us about this because, like, who could tell us about how great
Yeah.
music of the world? I know who could do that. What if we had? I'm going to manifest immediately right now. I want to happen at the snap of my fingers. The host of Music of the World, Joanna Manqueros. Can it happen? Oh,
There we
oh,
go.
I got magic powers. Joanna Manqueros. What's up, Joanna? How's it going?
Hello. It's lovely to see you too in your flow out there on the deck.
Yes, and I love seeing the blue and the is it the pink behind you?
Yeah, it's a fabric from India.
Okay, so even your living space is of the world.
Yeah, yeah, got to be right.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Well, thanks for joining us today. We were glad that you came here to hang out with us. We appreciate it so much. I feel like you're here because you're going to tell us something special. What's going on in the world?
Well, I could speak in general about music of the world, but I'll just mention that this month, the month of May, we have a lot of special things coming up. So maybe I'll do that first, and then I'll talk about the vision of the show. Let's see. First of all, I think on the 6th of May, we're going to have Purnamasari, which is a gamelan cross-cultural group with Lisa Graciano, who's the lead singer. And she lives here in the Bay Area, but she's from Bali, Indonesia. And the whole band is very infused with the traditions of gamelan music. So it's a really beautiful sound. And they'll be live in the station Saturday, May 6th from 10 to 11 a.m. And another fun thing in May is that I'm a big fan of drinking chai. Everyone who knows me knows this. I drink chai pretty much nonstop. And
I do
it,
know that actually there you had a band in the station, and like as we were like in the middle of the like performance, you stopped like, "Are you guys really excited? We can go get a chai." And
I remember hearing that. Yes.
yes, chai. And so I'm going to have somebody come in, Lena Travati, Grenadier, who's going to talk about the history of chai, which is a fascinating history of anti-colonialism. And I'm just going to leave it hanging like that and let her tell the
Hmm.
story. But I thought it would be fun to have something that people could sip while they're listening to music on Saturday morning, and also to gain a deeper understanding. You were talking earlier about New Orleans and the history of voodoo in the United States. And so much of these things that we see in our world turn out to have this tremendous history of resilience and beauty. Like, for example, one of the instruments that you hear in a lot of African Caribbean music is the sound of the cajon. And the cajon is a Spanish word, really from the word caja, meaning box. And what happened was, of course, drumming was illegal because of all the things you were talking about, mikO, about they don't want slaves to gather, they don't want slaves to empower each other or to communicate long distance with certain rhythms. So they said no more drums. And so the people got creative, right? And they got these boxes. And then they made a beautiful art form out of the
Hmm.
music from the boxes. And that is the cajon drum that you hear in a lot of music. So there's many things like that that we learn about when we do music of the world.
okay, that's you know what, Joanna, it's so funny you mentioned cajon. Like I said, I play guitar. I do music, and sometimes I make music for indie films. And usually when I bust out my percussion, I have a cajon.
Hmm.
And I actually I want to expand it more and make a little cajon drum set, because yeah, you can play it like a box, boom, 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 right, with your hands, but you can actually hook up a kick pedal to it, and with a little like hi-hat and snare, and play it like it's like a regular trap
Oh, wow.
drum set.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that you mentioned the cajon. I'm like, oh my goodness, I love the
Hmm.
cajon. I don't think I ever learned about it until college. So I
Hmm.
didn't really know about it for most of my life
Yeah.
growing up. But now
Have
I
you
do.
ever played cajon, Joanna?
A little bit, a little bit. I was more interested in the Afro-Cuban, just basic conga drums when I was doing
Mhm.
drumming. But drumming is a lot, it turns out, is a lot like math. And I was never that good at math. And it's all about increments of sound versus silence. And it's
Mhm.
very mathematical and organized. It's nothing like what you think when you think of people, oh, they're just drumming. No, everybody's
Mhm.
got their part and it better be done right. So, but I am going to talk about an instrument that is also similar to the cajon in that it's a kind of an amalgamation of different cultures. But before I do that, can I mention something about this movie that's coming up?
Please.
Mhm.
Okay, so we talked about this and gave away tickets last Saturday. This Sunday, which is the 30th of April, before May even begins, an artist is coming to town. He's from Tibet, and his name is Sering Sherpa. And I think he just flew in from Nepal like today. And he's going to be talking about his art. He's an artist who grew up as a traditional Tibetan Thangka painter. And those are those beautiful, colorful, like panels of Buddhas from Tibet. But then he traveled and he got exposed to modern art. And he's going to be talking about his journey as an artist internationally. And also, there's a film, and the director of the film, which is called Above and Below, will be at the event. It's going to be at the Berkeley Art Museum, Pacific Film Archive, Sunday at noon. And I was the music director on the film. And the film is really about his transformation as an artist. And his art is something I had never seen before in my life. And it's a really fascinating story. So I hope people will join us on Sunday for that event.
I think that that sounds amazing. Yeah, thank you for telling about that. Actually, you know what? We have a comment in the chat that we want to show, which I think it would be great because it's actually who's. Can we put up that comment, Jess? Here we go. Drums summon spirits. And this is from Renee Moncada McElroy, who actually, just like you, Joanna, is really, really into like worldly music, spiritual stuff. And it's really great. But also another host here at KPFA who hosts another video stream, the Venus Lounge,
Hmm.
which plays live on her Facebook on Thursdays at 7. But then we also rebroadcast it again on Friday. And it's another one of these great hosts that we have here at the station. And also, just like you, Joanna, as you're getting ready to, you're telling us about the film that you directed. She's also a director. So it's great that we have all these people here at KPFA. I want to, Joanna next on my list because I know you're doing a lot of like live in studio performances. You know what I want. You know what I'm going to tell her that I want her to do.
You want to do a film?
Well, of course, we can always do film, but I want Joanna. I mean, Joanna, if you're telling me that you're directing film, I was just like, oh, Joanna, when are we going to get you to do some live video for Music of the World?
Well, first of all, I just want to say I didn't direct the film. I was a music director.
Okay, music director. Forgive me, I'm a music director.
Of the film. But yeah, we're happy to do video. But we actually, what we like to do best of all is to have a live audience. And we look forward to having that back at the station. And that was a way for people to get exposed to music that they didn't know what that was or anything. Maybe the first time they see a live Moroccan ensemble in person.
Mhm.
So hopefully we'll get that going again, and we'd love to have video at that time to showcase these brilliant musicians here in the Bay.
Okay, that's how you want it. Let me ask, since we have our interim general manager, what are some of our limitations currently at the moment that's still holding us back from being
Ah,
able to do live in-person events in the station and invite more guests?
yeah. Well, for everyone out there who doesn't know what's going on at the station itself has more strict health and safety guidelines than a lot of other places. And at the moment, we're doing some shows, have some live music, but it's once in a while. Ideally, for me, I would love to have more live music, the station more open. But going back to the beginning of what I said about anxiety, there's been a lot of conversations within the building about that. And I'll just let you all know that, you know, working in a nonprofit in listener sponsored radio where we're trying to get everyone on board, at least everyone know what's going to happen next, is really a challenge. People always talk about thinking that it's just as simple as making a decision, but in this whole grand scheme of like kind of like community organizing, you really need to get everyone on board. And so the biggest challenge that we face is a lot of these conversations we've had, and I've had conversations with Joanna who wants to bring in bands and then have an audience, which I think would be a beautiful thing. Don't get me wrong, I want to support having that, but then on the other side, we have these folks who may have some health concerns that it's really challenging to have those meetings where people are really concerned about their own health and safety to the point where it's like, okay, how do I find the middle ground here to move forward? And right now we're in a position where it's still challenging and there's a lot of frustration on both ends, but I think we're already starting to move toward that direction of opening slowly. But that's been a challenge. And so for a lot of you out there who are kind of wondering, why is the station haven't opened yet? All these other places are opening. Just know that we're also taking into account those conversations with other individuals who may be on the other end. And we're just trying to find a way where everyone can feel healthy and safe in the building. And it's long. I'll just say that. It's like it becomes a long process. And one thing that I told you, which we always joke about, is like whenever we need change to happen at the station, change takes a long time.
Yeah.
None of this stuff ever happens just immediately. There's always conversations in the background because we need to make sure it's going to work for everybody. Right.
Oh yeah, in the background you can hear the vroom vroom of the motorbikes going by.
This is not a green screen.
This is not a green screen. We really are on the deck here in Berkeley. But yeah, so we're here, and even Joanna, I know that we started. Actually, you should know this. We started on the deck here because it is actually on the deck, and it's a play on words like on deck. What are our announcements? We're broadcasting from on the deck, but it was because we were trying to broadcast the show, and it was like, well, I don't want to be inside of the station because it was still. This was probably just this was last year or so. So it's been over a year. Yikes! But it was the whole like still not feeling comfortable with being in with a bunch of people around. But that being said, I know that we've done a couple times, Joanna, for Music of the World on Saturdays, and it was still pretty good to have some of the guests that you had just like showing up, even though we didn't get to have that audience right away.
Not yet, but I will mention also on the 3rd of June, we're going to have David Worm and his vocal music ensemble, and he is a master of vocal percussion. Every Monday they have a vocal music percussion and audience participation sound experience with Bobby McFerrin up at the Freight. And David Worm is part of that. And I'm really excited to hear what he's going to bring and who he's going to bring to KPFA on June 3rd to make some sound healing happen. And there were two things you mentioned, Antonio, that relate to Music of the World. And they are dealing with mental health issues like anxiety or depression. And long before we had all these psychiatric beds and all that stuff, people had been doing music to heal themselves. In the chat, we see here with Renee Moncada McElroy, a comment, drums summon spirits. And there's a feeling sometimes when you hear certain music that it can touch your heart. I know the last time that happened for me really profoundly was with Los Sensoles. I heard them singing, and it was just so moving. It took me out of myself, out of my suffering, out of my head, and right here into this experience with them. And that's the kind of thing that music can do. And so we don't want to say music is a substitution for all the healing arts that all of us engage in, but it's a really nice complement, and it's fun to explore it. The other thing I wanted to comment on had to do with something you said, mikO, which has to do with a phrase. And that phrase that you said was world music. But I would just say I take exception to that because our show is music of the world, and the world is wide. And this concept of world music was something that really came out in the 1980s when they were trying to kind of dumb down music of the world to say, you know what, let's just throw in this Indian stuff and the Cuban and everything, and it's all just one genre, right? And the Grammys did that, and all these people did that. And we don't go with that. If we're listening to music from Lebanon, we really want to hear it. What do those people sing about? What's the language they're singing in? What is the feeling they're bringing? And the same with all of these places and spaces. So, for example, when we listen to the music of Purna Masari, which is from, Bali and the Bay Area, well, we're hearing both. We're not hearing a dumbed down version. So we try not to say that there's one genre of music called world music, but actually a celebration of music from all these different places and spaces.
Okay, I like that. I can get with that. I'm into that. I like that a lot. All right, thank you.
No, it makes total sense because the world is a huge place, and just lumping them all together. Yeah,
that's true. Fair. I'm with that.
Well, thank you for that education, Joanna.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you too for coming. So now that you're here, Joanna, we're going to get you to participate in some of our on the deck traditions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Oh, sweet. She's ready. All right. So starting with that, Antonio, what time is it?
It is the donor highlight.
I'll take it. It's time for the donor highlight. And so this is a time where we highlight a donor who, of course, has contributed to KPFA. And sometimes they are financial contributions, and that's super, super great. Sometimes it's someone just sending a message saying how much the station means to them, because we like to, recognize stuff like that too. So let's see if we can get up our donor highlight. Who is our donor that we're highlighting today? If we can get you, Joanna, to recognize this person for us, please. Oh, did you freeze, Joanna?
I'm here.
Oh.
do you see,
the donor highlight is right there.
Which donor? There's so many. Which donor?
Okay.
Well, any donor?
Do you see the name there right on the screen?
No.
Rosalie from Burbank.
Rosalie from Burbank. Rosalie, thank you so much for your kind contribution to KPFA. I know when our show was kind of under risk of going away in February of this year, it was the listeners and the supporters of the station that secured it, saved it. and brought back a feeling of hope and inspiration for Tawfiq Halabi and myself. So thank you, Rosalie, so much for helping out in that way and keeping the station going.
That's perfect, Joanna. Thank you so much. That's amazing. Yes, I mean, you should also know that we take the audio out of this video and we make little promos for the station. So we want to always run our donor highlight. And so we appreciate you recognizing this donor, because now, in addition to hearing their name on the radio, they can be like, "Oh my goodness, Joanna Manqueros said something to me. I feel so special today."
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. And now our next bit here is that we want to encourage people to follow us on social media. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put up our follow us on social media bit. But first, actually, Joanna, where can people find you and Music of the World on social media?
You can find me on Facebook, Joanna, Joanna, and the last name is Manqueros. And you can find Tawfiq Halabi as well on Facebook. It's TAWFIC, and the last name is HALABY. And then you can also find us on Instagram at Music of the World Live Joanna.
Great. That's amazing. So then I believe is it at Joanna Manqueros on Facebook?
I don't think so. I mean, actually, I don't really know. But if you just look up my name, I'm telling you, there's no other person by that name in this whole world, mikO.
We'll take it. We'll take it. We'll take it. Okay. So then we also want to get you to tell folks to follow KPFA on social media. So we're going to go ahead and get up that information there for you, and you can go ahead and just read it. Jess, our PA, is going to throw it up there for you so you can read the caption. Can you see it?
No, but I can talk about it anyway.
All right. So we want to get you. We're gonna play. Ooh, let's do call and response. Call and response. Is that from around the world? Is that Music of the World?
Sure. And you could also put it in the chat if you want me to.
Well, we have it up here on the screen so that people can also see it at the same time that we're saying it. So here we go. Colin, do you want to give me a little beat? Can you give me a little beat with a clap? With a clap. Whatever. Stop it. All right, Joanna, we want to get you to tell folks to follow KPFA on social media.
Please follow KPFA on social media, kpfa.org and at KPFA.
Wait, I was going to give you the exact thing. So we want you to say Facebook at KPFA 94.1.
Follow KPFA on Facebook at KPFA 94.1.
Ooh, that's perfect. And then here's the last one. You ready? It's a mouthful, but I think it's easy. Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok at KPFA Radio.
Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook.
Twitter.
Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter.
We'll take it.
Radio.
Oh, say that one again. At where?
At KPFA Radio.
We got it. We got everything we need to make the promo. All right. Now, Joanna Manqueros and Music of the World have officially been baptized into
On the Deck.
Oh, yeah. It's so great. Thank you for coming to visit us. We really appreciate your support. We definitely want to get the information out there about your event. And we're probably going to look back to you in the future, because now you said you got something coming up in June. And we want to know when you finally are going to have, when finally we open up the station, Mr. Interim General Manager, and people can come in to listen and hear and participate in Music of the World. But in the meantime, why don't you go ahead and tell us, when does Music of the World play on KPFA Radio?
Music of the World airs every Saturday morning from 9 to 11 a.m.
Excellent.
That sounds amazing. I love it. You having a good time?
You have so much content to work with for your promos on the radio.
Yeah. All right. It's 24/7. The radio is open, so we got to have constant content. Yes. But thank you. Thank you for supporting our donor highlight, for helping us with social media. Thank you for coming to visit us in general. We want to remind everybody here who is watching now live, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate your support. But if you're watching after the fact, because, oh yeah, Joanna, I guess I didn't tell you this. I play this, I send this to Berkeley Community Media, and they play it on public access. But if you're watching after the fact, always tune in to KPFA Radio at 94.1 FM. And you can always log on to kpfa.org And if there's anything we spoke about here, you want to find out more information about On the Deck, about KPFA, about Joanna Manqueros, or about Music of the World, you just go there and find out all your bits that you need. But in the meantime, we've had an amazing time. I had an amazing day. We are out here on the deck because, again, we finally replaced our umbrella just in time for spring and summer. And it is hot. I didn't, right before we went live, I actually had to readjust because I was like, oh no, I'm going to burn. But did you have a good day today?
I did have a good day. It's an awesome day and great to have Joanna as a guest. I always love it when we have guests from the station who create content at the station on the deck because, hey, without you all creating that content on radio and promoting it here, where would we be? We're a big community. We need everyone to participate. And so I'm happy that Joanna was here promoting the show. I'm also looking forward to hearing more about music, live music that's happening on Music of the World as the months go on. So it's going to be great.
Yes. And then we also want to say thank you to our PA, who we can't live without. We love him so much, and we want him to know we love having him at the station so much. Jess Hutchison.
Yes.
Thank you to our PA, Jess, who helps us run the controls so that we can just focus and give all of our attention to our wonderful guests who come here. Thank you, everybody. Again, KPFA 94.1 FM and kpfa.org. I believe we will see you, everybody, next week.
Next week, yes.
All right. With that, we say bye-bye.